saw the number of vendors that had dropped off, that we had sent things out. I did recommend to Mr. Waffle that now we have several years of history where we can see less and less vendors bidding that. We now, I think it would be, like, we've gone to all the work this year, we probably won't accept the bids, but next year, definitely look at the co-stars first. If it's something we can't find on co-stars, then move forward to a bid. So, well, again, I will recommend that we, Mr. Waffle, start this process. He kind of knows what he needs every year. Check it out, and coming usually in February, I think we ask to go out to bid. Then he comes in February, and he'll have a shorter list of things to go out to bid.
Thank you.
The next bid is bid 16114, tractor bid and attachments. We sent 11 proposals out and received 6 back. I would like to recommend Roy Steiner for mower with a base bid of $31,750 and a deck replacement for $2,900 for a total of $34,650. I'd also like to recommend Devlin for a 72-inch zero-turn mower, base bid $10,460. And I'd like to recommend G Little for a 54-inch zero-turn mower, base bid $8,095. Next one is Bedminster Tile, bid 16-115. Quick explanation. All floor tile in Bedminster is asbestos, and it's starting to show issues of coming off. So when I showed my budget back in January, that was part of the $650,000 non-routine budget items that I would go out to bid for. So this is a little over half the school. We thought we'd do it in 2 phases. This year we'll do phase 1, next year hopefully phase 2. So this will take care of, we'll call it the north wing. Right from the office, you make a right, all the way down, all the classrooms. Hallway classrooms, including the cafeteria, all right? So Bedminster Tile, bid number 16115, we sent 7 out, received 3 back. I would like to recommend rake flooring for the base bid amount of $31,450. Bid number 16116, Penn Central carpet replacement. This is for Penn Central's library and computer lab. We sent 5 bids back, received 1. Current low bid is white flooring. Contractors on why they bid. All co-stars. 30 schools, Pennridge and one of them. Few schools are still bidding that. Too much paperwork for them.
Is this one where you could?
This I could get you co-star's price.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next one I can get you co-star's price too. Siler carpet, bid number 16117. 5 were sent out, 1 were received. April 27th, sealed bids were open. This is for Siler's office and library. Recommend low bid base for $19,932. Pardon? There were 5 sent out. Next bid, custodial equipment, bid number 16-118. 12 were sent out, 3 were received. Bids were open on April 21st. I'd like to recommend Franklin Machine for all of the bids for $10,828. That's for 4 upright vacuum cleaners, 1 carpet extractor, 1 20-inch floor machine, and a 26-inch speed scrubber. Next bid is maintenance vehicle number 1. It was an RFP because it is CoStar's. 16-02. It is the 3,500 cutaway truck. So 9 were sent out, 2 were received. Parent low bid is Penske Buick for the amount of $31,544. There is 1 on the lot at this time for availability. We'll have a little summary following the next 2 bids. Maintenance vehicle number 2, RFP 16-03. It's the 3,500 HD pickup truck. This is also a CoStar's. 9 were sent out, 2 have been received. April 21st, the proposals were open. Parent low bid is Penske Buick for $34,615. The next bid is the trailer, bid number 16-113. 6 were sent out, 1 was received. Cargo trailer for the amount of $23,616. There's another conversation that I had with the vendor. At one point, we had a proposal from Comm, but they would not bid. They don't want to do the paperwork. Cargo trailer called me and had a conversation about he may not bid, and I told him I need his bid because of the paperwork. His exact words were paperwork and bonds. So luckily we did get the bid from them. So on your next tab, you should be looking at the bid summary.
Jeff, did he know that he would have the only bid in at that point?
No. I mean, as far as I know, I would never say anything like that. Yeah.
No,
I just, said we need as many bids as we can get.
Okay.
Now, you'll see in the summary, actually, that his bid came in less than his quote of a year ago. So it's not like he assumed anything. So if you look at the summary, and this is the summary that we really looked at months back. So on March 23rd, the board approved to go out to bid for option 2 and option 3 with the following changes. Option 2, we changed the 30-foot gooseneck trailer to a 36-foot gooseneck trailer. We also changed the 3,500 dually to a regular 4-wheel drive pickup. So if you look at your first left column, that was the original request, option 1, that was discussed and we were not going to go out to bid for. So if you go down, staying on the left side, option 2, truck and trailer. So again, the original request was a 30-foot gooseneck trailer. Now luckily, when they gave me the price, they actually gave me a price for the 36-foot. So I think it was really the verbiage was wrong when they told me to go out to bid for a 30-foot. So that price was correct. It was the verbiage on the 30-foot versus the 36-foot, okay? Then underneath that was the 3,500 GMC dually pickup. So I had that estimated at $48,500 or a total of $72,400. So if you move to your right on that, look at the bid results. Again, the 30-foot gooseneck changed to a 36-foot gooseneck, but the price actually came down because of the bid at $23,616. The even better news is we didn't bid the dually, we bid just a regular 4-wheel pickup. So that price came down quite a bit to $34,615. So those 2 bids, option 2, would now be $58,231. Option 3 really didn't change. It's the same vehicle. It's the 3,500 cutaway truck. I had it estimated at $36,000. With the results, it came in at $31,544. There's 1 of them in the lot at this time. Moving back up, the 3,500 GMC truck is in stock, and the 36-foot gooseneck trailer is 10 weeks out after it receives a PO. So speaking with administration, Mrs. DeBona, who plays a part in this, and also looking back, maybe close to 2 years ago, we talked about the old band truck being, well, at that point, the supervisor for the transportation said it's in pretty good shape. We should get at least 5 more years out of it. Well, it's been 1.5 years, 2 years later, and it's developed a creak here and there. I'm not saying it's not going to make it. We're going to send it out, take a look at it. It could be just, needs a little oil or grease or something, but it's developing a few small problems. So with that said, and speaking to administration, I think we're recommending the 36-foot gooseneck trailer, option 2, trailer and truck package.
Jeff, with option 2, then the golf cart can be loaded onto the truck and not towed, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Jeff, you had indicated before the truck, are you going to have, you'll have other uses for it beside just pulling the trailer?
Yes, and mostly that it's not a dually anymore. Yes.
What would you do with the old truck? The old band truck, would that be traded in or something?
No, trade-in value on that truck was about $3,800. We'll use that till it dies.
Okay.
We can certainly use it throughout the district, here or there, mostly in summertime when we move
Okay.
furniture around.
And, I'm sorry, my buddy cutting
No,
you
no,
off.
that's fine.
I know Mrs. Yardy had a question before about where this would be stored, especially now with the other truck. Do we have places where these vehicles can be parked that wouldn't be out in the parking lot the way it is now?
The band truck, the old band truck, will probably go over to transportation. It'll be stored behind the fence there. The pickup truck will probably come and be stored in my secured area. The band trailer, wherever they would like that parked, I would think, as with the band truck, they'd want to keep it nearby.
I was just.
So it's, we haven't really discussed where that's going to be housed
Well,
at.
so it wouldn't be a big deal if you're moving the other band truck then?
Right.
Okay.
And if I could just add, if everyone remembers on the board, we did budget $50,000 for this originally, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that the bid was actually a lot lower than we had thought. And as Mr. Loeffler said, I think the fact that it doesn't have the dually, he and his staff can use it for a lot of other reasons. And on top of that, I know that the PMA has offered to make a contribution towards this as well. So I kind of see it as a win-win for everybody at this point.
I just have a question, Jeff.
Yes.
I don't know, I'm not sure who it pertains to. In regard to the email that we got from the PMA, I know that Mr. Snyder sent it out again, so I'm assuming that everybody had a chance to read it, in which they outlined what they, the amount that they could possibly contribute. I guess my question is, when it came up before the meeting, and I believe Mrs. Herring had questioned about doing it over a 10-year period, much like how we're doing our fundraising goals with the stadium. And that's how they laid out this motion. How do we handle this, Kathy? I don't know if that's a question for you. They put in here amount not less than 1,000 but not exceeding 1,500. Do we go with a set amount? Who's responsible for collecting this over a 10-year period? How do we handle this? That's my question.
The way the letter is currently written is not a legal binding contract.
Okay.
So we could always ask, you could set someone up in the business office to, annually, if they're not seeing the contract, any amounts come in, someone could always contact PMA, or it's on the honor system that they will pay that.
I
But again,
guess-
it's not a legally binding contract as it's stated.
Then do we handle it in that way? I mean, much like our fundraising, they are contracts that are signed by either, if it's an individual or a business,
We can,
over a 10-year period.
I was going to say, since you're bringing this up, we can certainly ask Attorney Cox, if that is how the board desires this to be, if that's what the board wishes, we can certainly talk to Attorney Cox. But we would need the board to direct us to, that's what they want us to do. If that's what you would like Attorney Cox to do, is to write up a binding contract, that would go through him. That would have to be a board decision, and probably some conversation with the PMA folks.
Okay, I was going to say, I know Mr. Snyder's here. I don't know, was there discussion within your group of how to handle that, other than the motion that was proposed, that was sent? I mean, obviously, as with any booster group, there's turnover. You know, there are some people that are there for years because they have numerous children involved in that, but a lot of times you have people that it's a matter of a couple of years, so.
You are correct, and we did talk about that at our meeting. I know it's not a binding legal contract, but we considered it an obligation of the PMA when we passed the motion. And we did discuss the fact that, yes, after next year I won't be here anymore, but there will be other parents that were there and will be here for at least 3 more years. And understand that this would be an ongoing obligation to the district.
I do have a question. You're going to be using the truck for other duties in the district, is that correct? And is it fair then to ask the PMA to donate?
I believe the donation is for the trailer, which
Just
we,
the trailer?
which we will not be
Using,
using.
okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question also. I'm just wondering, it says in here it's contingent upon the success of the fundraiser, so I was just wondering what the definition of success is.
Basically, from what we discussed, the holding of the fundraisers. Last year, we did not have Spectrum of Sound, which you all know, because of the construction of the football field, and that's our single largest fundraiser for the year. We usually generate between $3,500 and $4,000 from Spectrum of Sound. So, although we didn't have it last year, we felt comfortable that going forward, as long as Spectrum of Sound would occur, and Jazz on the Ridge is another huge fundraiser for us, as is the indoor Color Garden Drumline Show. So if we continue to have those, and I know Spectrum of Sound has been going on for decades, I'm not sure exactly how long, then the PMA felt that we could continue to make the donation to the district. If for some reason Spectrum of Sound, Jazz on the Ridge, and the indoor drumline shows are all canceled, we would still make an attempt to make the payments, but you know, without any revenue sources, it may be more difficult. I mean, I can't imagine that with the new field completed and everything, that Spectrum of Sound would not continue for the foreseeable future.
Could I ask, during the discussion, the decision to be minimum of 1,000, maximum of 1,500, is there any discussion on what would determine the amount, how you would determine that amount?
There was some discussion. It was basically based upon the size of the band. At this point, we were roughly thinking $10 per member would be a fair amount. We had roughly 150 kids last year. That would be $1,500. The band size will fluctuate over time. We figured that it would probably not go below 100 members, so somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500.
Thanks. Sorry I'm late. I had a clothing malfunction, but sort of an accident where I had to go home. So this isn't much better, but than what happened. So I guess what it seems like we're talking about, because we've been over this, it's the truck has been settled on board, and we're talking about option 2 of the trailer. And so some of the things we've talked about in the past, I heard when I got here, you know, I just want to give my 2 cents. I don't think we should get involved in a legal contract with the PMA for the donation. I think we should treat it as a donation. I think to go down that road is a little much, especially after all the discussion and with the, at least in my opinion, with the Rams on the Ridge, you know, it's individuals, they get some recognition, they might get some business out of it. You know, if you can give something, that's going to be great, because I guess the option we're going with is the one you wanted, right?
That's correct.
Right? And it's probably the smarter deal for us. It's going to cost more money. Everyone doesn't not everyone likes when we spend more than we have to. So if there's a way to get it back in some way, that's, I'm would not support a legal contract. I don't think that's a good idea. And
I mean, we thought if, I mean, the bids came in at, I think Mr. Loeffler said 15,200. If we gave $10,000 over the course of 10 years, that gets us below the $50,000 that was originally budgeted. And I think that's, as Dr. Radigan said, a win-win for everybody. I think if you can bring something in that's under budget and makes everybody happy, then I would consider that a win-win.
also, I think, Mr. Schneider, you brought up in the past, you know, we're losing some other expense with getting this vehicle, right? We have less vehicles on the road, less drivers. The other one's not getting any younger. That's one tow truck ride away from costing us who knows how much. So I think for me, and we've been over this for months now, you know, when we roll it all together and we got a nice bid back, if you guys can chip in somehow, I mean, that's how I'm looking at it. And some people in the public might not like that. We're always supposed to get the cheapest thing, but sometimes that's not really the cheapest way to go. So that's really where I'm at with this. And once again, sorry I'm late in joining in. You and I spoke a couple times before we got here over the past few weeks. So hopefully there'll be enough support for the truck and then option 2 and not holding the PMA to legal contracts. Legal contracts, not illegal contracts.
I think that would be a dangerous precedent to do that, to hold them to a legal contract. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Well, what if someone else wants to use the trailer, or what if, are we
Right.
all going to paint our names on it if we
Right.
give $50?
Right.
That might be pretty cool.
Barry, before you got here, Kathy indicated that the business office would be able to handle the collection without the contract as well.
And we did anticipate that our first payment to the school district would be this fall. So,
So I guess we want to try to get this. Are there 5 of us here that want to put it on the agenda without the legal contract for the truck, for the second option? And does that cover everything, Kathy, for a motion? We have 5 people, please? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, we got 5, so that's enough to get it on there, I guess. Are
Thank
you going to
you.
miss talking about this now?
Yes, miss it terribly.
It's your last chance right now. Get it all out.
I'm good.
All right. Go ahead.
You should. Mr. Loeffler, I guess we can continue then. Jay, I think is where we are.
J, classroom furniture, was an RFP, 16-04. We sent 15 out and received 3. Bids were open on, proposals were open on April 21st, and I would like to recommend Vertco for the amount of $776.80, and WB Mason for the amount of $8,069. You can see the item descriptions below. We're really for 15.5-inch chairs for Seiler and Guth, 18-inch chairs for Seiler, some combo desks, office chairs. I think if you remember when I did my budget, I showed you a picture of all of the, they were teachers' desks that looked like they were all of 25 years old and just in horrible shape. So that's the West Rock Hill mid-back fabric chair. If there's no questions on that, we'll move on to evacuation chair. It's an RFP 16-05. This is for Penn South, 3rd floor. We sent out 3 and received 2 back. If you can see, ADK Global Products was actually low bid, but it was an alternate. It wasn't what I actually bid for. So we're not going to accept that. We will accept the evac chair for $1,295.
Is this the only evacuation chair you have in the district? Is that just for targeted students?
It is. This is the first one that's ever been requested.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not
So
usually, yeah, that's,
we will see how they work out, and surprising, they're really not that expensive.
No.
So
there's no elevator either at Southbury.
there is elevators,
Oh,
but
understood.
the concern was if there's a fire,
You have to
don't use the
suggest.
elevator. Yeah.
Now, I do suggest that you have a physical therapist train the people that are going to be evacuating the students.
I agree. Next bid, radios, walkie-talkies, RFP 16-06. We sent 5 out, received 1 back. April 21st, proposals were open. I'd like to recommend all system wireless for the amount of $5,259.38. The radios are 4 for Bedminster, 4 for Grass, 3 for Sellersville Elementary, and 3 for maintenance. Really mostly for security issues, playground attendance, office staff, that sort of thing.
Jeff, is this one where you can check, something like got 1 bid?
This may be a CoStar's bid, yes.
Well, I was going to say, Mr. Loeffler, if you can, any of these that you go through that we may find could be CoStar, if you would be so kind,
Yeah.
look into that for us, please. Anything that where we may have had those 1 bid or anything like that going forward,
I'll check them all.
please do.
Yeah. And also going back to this particular one, Scott Communication and I think AA Communication have bid in the past on radios and have lost every year. So they're just the same deal, they're just tired of doing paperwork. But I will check on the CoStars. District-wide water cooler bid, RFP 16-07. We sent 6 out, received 5. April 21st, proposals were open for 14 water coolers. And I'd like to recommend DS Water for the amount of $3,862.32 per year. That's for a 3-year contract. So you can see it's really $22.99 per unit per month. Next bid is fire extinguisher inspections. We sent 5 out, received 3 back on April 21st. Proposals were open. I'd like to recommend Kessler O'Brien for the amount of $25,924.80. And again, that's a total of 3 years. So year 15-16 is $8,556. 20 cents, the same in the second year, and the third year it's up a little bit for $8,812.40. Kistler has won the bid last year and did a really good job for us last year. Utility vehicle, Gator, RFP 16-09. We sent 6 out, received 4 back. As you can see, some items by John Deere are the price they are, and they can't fluctuate from it. So all 3 of the 4 prices were the same for the exact same make and model. There was an alternate bid for a different brand at $8,582. But I would like to recommend Devlin for the amount of $6,805.17. And the reason, of course, for Devlin is because they're in our district. Next bid is gym floor refinishing. Sent RFP 16-10, sent 5 out, received 2 back. On the 21st, proposals were open. And I'd like to recommend Divine Flooring for the amount of $9,850. That was the same company that won last year that we did Penn Central and South. So those prices last year were actually $12,050. Now West Rockville's a slightly smaller floor, so 1, I think we're getting a very good price, and 2, they did a very good job for us last year on both Central and South. Next bid, magnetic dry erase boards, RFP 16-11. We sent 9 out, received 3 back. You can see that Everace is actually a low bid, but it's also an alternate. It's not an equal. We asked for porcelain magnetic boards in our bid, and these were not porcelain. I had some samples in, I inspected them, actually showed them to a few people, and we all agreed that for the little bit of money that they are lower, it's not an equal. You could actually take, well, certainly a pen or a pencil, if you ran it across it, you would dent it. Your thumb could probably dent it. So being in a classroom, they wouldn't last very long. The porcelain can take that beating. So for a little bit more, I'm asking I recommend that we go to Blackboard Casework and Design for the amount of $9,749. 14 will be going to Sellersville, 6 will be going to Bedminster, and 2 will be going south.
Mr. Loffer, are they skins?
They are not skins. They are a board on, like homicide. It's a porcelain board on a homicide that just goes right on where the blackboard is. Screw, little glue, done.
I'm assuming magnetic?
Magnetic, yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Grass elementary carpet, RFP 16-2, sent out 7, received 3. On April 27th, proposals were open. I'd like to recommend rate flooring for the amount of $6,460.
How come you got a better response from this carpet than all the other carpets?
Because it's an RFP, so all they have to do is put a price down and hand it in. And I was going to say that, if you saw when we went out to bid for carpet, these guys didn't bid. There's 2 RFPs where they did bid. And you see that, who's at Revere is fairly close. And they're both, I know Revere and Wrights are both co-stars. But again, Revere doesn't want to go through the bidding process. People will do an RFP or co-stars.
So how do we determine whether to do a bid or not bid?
Well, I think there'll be more discussions, but we're going to talk about it and bring it to the board next year, and I think I can show that we can alleviate a lot of the bidding process, advertising, paperwork, and just go to co-stars next year with probably 2/3 of these vendors, and then just get RFPs or co-star bids versus bids, sealed bids. Is that clear?
Well, I didn't know if there was any requirement
Like
for one or the other.
a dollar amount, you mean, like a
Yeah.
value, a value.
Right.
Annually, the state does up our bidding value of what has to be bid. However, even if it exceeds that bid value, we can still use co-stars. So that's what Mr. Loeffler is saying. We're going to kind of go away from the bidding for 3 years. Kind of like we don't bid every year our stop loss insurance, because the vendors, they don't want to bid every year on the, and never get the bid. If you do something maybe for 3 years, you'll get a good price, but annually, you don't seem to get good returns when you do that year after year. So I think that may be what we're seeing with some of these vendors. We've done it year after year, and they didn't get any of the bids, and a lot of them have moved to co-stars, so that eliminates they've already gone through the vetting process at the state level. They don't have to do the bid bond, and those types of things.
So I guess going to co-stars is easier probably, but we're not quite certain then that we get the lowest bid. Is that?
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. The co-stars price is the co-stars price because it's already been determined at the state level. However, if no one's bidding, you're not getting a price there either. So again, I think to do 1 year, go back to co-stars. I think the board has asked Mr. Loeffler for any of these things that we've only gotten 1 bid. Let's go see if there is a co-stars price to see, is this a really good bid for this? And there's not too many that we only have 1 bid. A few we only have 1 returns.
Next bid is Guth Tile, RFP, I'm sorry, not a bid, RFP 16-13. We sent 8 out, received 4 back. On April 27th, proposals were open. Guth Tile replacement, and I'd like to recommend Wright's Flooring for the amount of $5,969. Next RFP is painting, 16-14. We sent 3 out and received 3 back. I'd like to recommend Adam Jones for the amount of $3,200 for Siler's Cafeteria. And I'd like to recommend Ron Swift Painting for the amount of $980 to paint Penn Central hallways. It's just a section of hallways, it's not the whole building hallways. Pennridge School District will be purchasing the paint. I, for some reason, can get a better price on painting than the contractor. Go figure.
This would be labor only.
This will be labor only, correct. So the total amount of both bids with the paint is $5,040. I worked with both companies before, they're both very good painters. Now this happens to be one of these bids that this particular company's won for the last 7 years straight, and nobody will even bid against them anymore. Maintenance custodial uniforms, RFP 16-15. We sent 3 out, received 1 back. On the 21st, proposals were open. I'd like to recommend Clemens Uniform for the amount of $15,530.03. Now, again, I'll go back and say a few years ago when I think it was American Wear, I'm not sure, did bid with them. They were close, so the bids were competitive years ago. And Clemens has somewhat hold that number, and every year the items change, so it's not exactly the same every year. But it's a good way to go back and say they're not taking us to the bank, knowing no one's going to bid against them. You know, I follow that and make sure what they bid last year, this year, that they're fair. The next bid is the environmental control system. It is the abatement part at Bedminster Elementary School and Guth. So again, Bedminster Elementary School, it's about half the school. At Guth, it is the cafeteria. We're seeing tiles starting to crack and bulge and be loosen up there. So I'd like to recommend Sargent Enterprise for Guth, base bid amount $4,888. And at Bedminster Elementary School, also Sargent Enterprise for the amount of $49,824. So I have one more item to discuss. If you remember 3 years ago, I went into a trash bid with Quakertown Palisades in Upper Perk, and we had tremendous results. We probably saved, I think it was, if I remember correctly, $11,000 for the next 3 years. So that bid was up again. We went out to bid again as a group purchasing, and there's, I think, some language in there that didn't do favors for Pennridge. So I would like to reject that bid and formally go out to bid myself. If the board approves it, I believe I can save a lot of money by rejecting that bid. And also, if you, when I did my budget, I did a summary of my $650,000 non-routine budget. At that point, we estimated what I was going to use was about $319,509. Those are these items that we went out to bid for. So the estimate coming in right now is that $297,000. So it looks like I'm under that budget by $21,758.
Mr. Loeffler and I did discuss that, and during our budget process, I'm going to ask the board if they will allow us to keep $330,000 in the budget for non-routine maintenance items, for any additional items that might come up during the year that would break that we have not included in the budget. Because from time to time, things do break in the schools that the principals have not, either weren't aware of when we asked for these things in January. I mean, lots of things can happen between January and June, or January and next January. So if, I could ask the board if they would allow us to keep 330 of the 650 in the budget.
That's everything, Jeff?
That is everything, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. Last year, the band truck and trailer, the $50,000 budgeted, wasn't that in, is that in this budget?
This current budget, yes.
But it's in this current year's? Okay.
So it's
And
in
so will
that
it be billed in this current
Yeah, for-
year, or will it be
for-
after July 1?
Well, we will certainly, get the purchase order out as soon as after the next board meeting, after May 18th board meeting. It'll be this year's purchase order. Hopefully it comes in, in 10 weeks. It's going to be pushing it right to the limit of whether we have it this financial year or not. If we don't, I will recommend that we set aside some committed funds to pay for that within the next fiscal year.
Okay, and is that in the $650,000 budget, as we like to call it, for the, or is that a different,
It is that budget, it's this
for
year's.
the non-routine maintenance?
330.
No, that's this year's. 330 is next year's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's in the $650,000 budget that was approved for the 2014-15 school year.
Last June?
Currently, yeah, last
Yeah,
year.
but it's the same budget we're talking about. But I mean, it's last year's, the current year's budget as opposed to, you're
Yes.
talking about next year's
It's the
budget.
2014-15 budget versus the 2015-16 budget, yes.
Right, okay, thank you.
Didn't we say that the truck was on the lot? They had one on the lot, it could get there fast enough. The trailer was 10 weeks, so we could still get most of the expenditure this year if it works.
Anyone else? Okay. Then, item number 4, obsolete items. Is this,
I'll do this.
you'll do this, thank you.
Mrs. Giartana has a buffalo chopper, again, to be put on public surplus for sale. She indicates that this particular item is in fair condition. We no longer use it. Pennridge High School Athletics Department has asked that a pole vault pit be obsoleted. They're suggesting that we put it on public surplus, however, it is no longer usable in poor condition. And actually, the fact that it's in poor condition, I believe we are going to scrap this rather than put it out to, after a conversation, that we would put it out to scrap rather than trying to sell something that was unusable. We have 2 pianos that are on the public surplus. They both are listed in poor condition. But again, we're indicating that they can go out to public surplus. So and they're both coming from South Middle School. Thank you. We have the library reading log from Sellersville. And we have a playground slide that is unsafe and damaged at Grass, that we are going to scrap that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. I think that's everything for facilities. So, Mr. Sonny, I don't know if you go right into finance.
For a special
Oh.
board. Adjourn.
Since we're going to have a special board meeting, I don't know, we probably should take any public comment on this section now, if anybody has.
Sounds good.
Good evening, Diane Herring, Hilltown Township. I was just wondering, because you are holding a special board meeting tonight, band camp starts August 10th, and you're talking about getting everything into a fiscal year. and I know that it does take time to cut POs and everything else. Is there any opportunity under either new business or additional business to vote to accept the bid for the truck and trailer tonight, just to expedite the start of that process? I would all, I'd ask because it would make a difference probably on the back end.
Well, one of the reasons it wasn't on the agenda, do you want to talk about that? I mean, we didn't want to, rush into it after 16 months, so. But there could have been more questions that came up, and there were some, I didn't catch them all, but it seemed like there was a unanimous sort of approval of how it's getting laid out, so if we're allowed to do that, our solicitor's not here, and if Dr. Radigan's okay with it, I mean, I would, why wait 2 weeks if we don't have to? After all this time, I think it's a good idea. If we're, doing everything we're supposed to do legally here. But the only reason it wasn't on here was because we didn't know what type of feedback could happen, and if we were asked some questions, we didn't really have the answers on hand for, but it looks like we did, so.
My question would be whether or not it was not on the agenda, and if the public has some kind of comment, they were not aware that there was going to be a vote tonight. Is that still kosher that we do this without this item being on the agenda? Question.
The next meeting is in 2 weeks from tonight, so at least it's not a month from now. Because that is a good question, Mr. Thompson.
Is Mr. Cox coming tonight for the special board meeting?
Normally we try, since I've been on the board anyway, we try not to do that. Even though, sometimes like this time seems to have made sense. Another precedent to just add things sort of, as Mr. Thompson, I think he brought up, I don't know what that means if it wasn't advertised.
That's a little shaky.
And new business may have to run through the course of new business.
It seems like August 10th is 12 weeks from May 18th. Right, I think somebody else was just trying to count them on the calendar.
So I would say I would like to accommodate it, but I don't know where that leaves us. Or maybe we could call them and tell them to start building. I'm not going to come.
That's worse than that.
Yeah. You can make a tentative thing.
So where are we going to leave that now?
The other thing I think you should think about, you have 3 board members not here, so if they had questions or concerns, even though you may think you have the votes here, I think it's better if they have a chance to chime in on it as well.
You've got a quorum. You've got a quorum.
I know.
Lee Perry, Hilltown Township. Just on what Mr. Thompson was saying, if there is a truck on the lot, so, I know you guys don't want to rush into this over the next 2 weeks, but he brought it up, is there any way we can say, hey, we definitely want that truck, so that doesn't all of a sudden disappear, and then we're waiting who knows how much longer? So, it's just a thought. And then, I guess my other question is so if you have it advertised and the public shows up, the public's going to change your mind? Yes. So, it's just a thought. Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, my apologies. Yes, facilities adjourned.